Okay, I'm genuinely excited here. This is a sexy bike. It's never going to look like this again. Could take it for the first ride. KTM 390 Enduro R. On the fleet of bikes for people to ride, but first I've got to ride it, do some miles, see what it's like. I'm going to take a ride out, do a few little trails, bit of road riding, see how she is. But she's a very pretty bike. Very pretty bike. Shame to get her dirty, but needs must. Alright, off we go. Okay, we just set off. It's in road mode as standard. I'm just going to switch it to off-road mode, which disengages, looks like rear ABS, off-road traction control. I have thought about doing Heartbreak Hill, but the engine's brand new, so I'm not going to do a steep climb straight off the bat. Try and run it in a little bit. Try and get my head around this. It's good that you can change modes on the go like that. Off-road mode, it puts it in this where all you can see is your speed and your gear indicator. You don't get fuel range, or I actually think there's a fuel gauge on it. Stand corrected if there is, but there's no rev counter or anything. All it does is show you the speed and oh, that wasn't a flame out, that was trying to ride that corner in 2 high gear because I was too busy focusing on that. There's been criticism of this bike. I've seen a few videos where they accuse the bike of having flame outs, i.e. it just stalls coming up to junctions, pulling the clutch in, and it's happened on a few of my bikes. It happened on the Triumph 400X when that was new. I'm trying to think what else it's happened on. It happens on the 390 now and again, or it did, and I think it's a consequence of bikes running so lean because of Euro 5 and Euro 5 plus emissions, and when you're coming into a stop they just don't have enough fuel going through them. They just die. And they do fire straight back into life, and sometimes it's just a case of starting to ride round it and changing your gear shifting pattern or the way you approach junctions. Or equally, bikes do get better as they get more miles on them. They seem to bed in a little bit. This has got a very elasticated throttle. I can see why people are saying the throttle input is not suited to off-road. It is. It's not boggy like that Beta was. That Beta, you started to wind the throttle on it, it just almost like bog. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Quick turnaround. Give me a second. Tall seat. Whoop, stalled it. That's embarrassing. Installed it twice then. Yeah. Okay, so these bikes are running quite lean, or very lean to pass emissions, so you just have to learn to ride them different and get the hang of them. It's not ideal, and I see people improving them with the fuel X's and stuff. Yeah, like there. They do stall out very easy, which it might make slow speed manoeuvres when you're off and on throttle a little bit tricky. I get the hang of it. What doesn't help this bike, it's got the same old 390 characteristic of a very tight steering lock, i.e. you've not got a lot of movement in the lock, so doing slow speed manoeuvres is tricky. I guess a better rider would have just spun it round then on the throttle, but I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy for you. Let's do this trail up here. So yeah, okay, so we've got some very early pronounced characteristics of the bike, i.e. certainly at slow speed, close throttle actions like that, it's very easy to stall the bike, certainly when you're new to it. But it's a bit like the 310 GS used to be like that. That used to be the same. You really had to learn to ride that, or it would just bug you the way it easily stalled. But look, at the moment I think that's just a characteristic rather than an impediment as such. I do see the guys in America, they're putting what's called a fuel X on it, so just to trick the ECU, I guess, into running a bit richer, which is an old trick that people have been doing for years on fuel injected bikes. Oh dear, oh my poor bike, oh my poor bike. Okay, so nice easy trail, nice standing position. As I say, never going to be this clean again. We've got Karoo 4 tyres, which I've seen a lot of criticism of, and I suppose, look, they're not going to be the last word in grip off-road. Manufacturers are trying to do the best to put the right tyre on for everyone who's buying the bike, and that's never going to please everyone. So I personally, I tend to ride around tyres right. Oh, my poor bike. I mean, like through there, I'm going through in second with a little bit of clutch slip. That's absolutely fine. That doesn't feel like it's going to flame out and stall at that. Down to first, ride it steady. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. There's no issue there at all. No issue at all. So yeah, I tend to ride around my tyres. I'm actually running road pressures, which is not going to be ideal. I should have aired them down a little bit. Because it's just going to make the bike bobble around a little bit and not grip quite as nicely as it could. Nice, easy, clean upshift without the clutch there. I'm up to fourth now. 40 miles an hour. I mean, it all works. It's all clean on the throttle. Some people are wanting more suspension travel and plushness. I see John at Rally Raid's already working on some upgrades for it. And I think that's the sort of dichotomy with this bike, if we can use a posh word to say. People want different things from it, and there's some who are sort of, because it's got Enduro in the name, are wanting it to perform like an Enduro bike, you know, and to jump and wheelie and do all that rough renegade type of off-road riding. And then obviously there's some who are going, well, it's just a KTM 390 Adventure with taller suspension and bigger wheels. It's ideal as a travel companion, and I guess that's where I'm coming from. So I think there'll be those who think, oh, it's a new 390 Enduro, it's going to be dead supreme off-road. But I think there's always going to be compromises. It's not as light as a KTM 690 or a 701 or a 500 EXC. There'll be those who are wanting that lightness and wondering what's the point of this if it's not lighter than a 690. But, you know, for me, what I like, or certainly the appeal of this bike, is this engine, and I know the engine well. I've done lots of miles on the old one. But it's a good refined engine for the road. Therefore, if I want to ride down to up to Wales or down to Italy to do the Stella Alpina, I know this bike and this engine will take me there nice and smooth, good speed on the motorway. It's service intervals every 6,000 miles. The engine actually is quite usable when we've run it in. You know, the 390 Adventure I've got is a very usable engine. It's easy to ride at slow speed. And so for that person who doesn't want elevated suspension or elevated performance, this is a really nice compromise bike compared to, say, a 690. And yeah, I think sometimes some people just close their mind to what other people might want out of a bike and just say what they want and why anybody else is wrong. I mean, bless Ben. Yesterday on Facebook, I've got one of these coming, and Ben, a mate who's been on a trip or two with me, he said, "Oh, why would you get one of them? Why wouldn't you get a 500 EXC? I don't see the point." And it's like, well, you know, if you can't see why somebody would buy this over a 500 EXC, then it's, you know, where do we go from that sort of thing? Yeah, one's a highly strung or more highly strung, taller, 10 mils taller in the seat, enduro off-road bike, and one's a travel bike that's going to haul 400 miles in a day if you want to. And I know there's crossover between the two, but there's clearly a big difference between their two intended purposes and riders who it's going to appeal to. Plus, at 5,600 quid, I actually think they've absolutely nailed the price of this. When you compare it to the CRS, non-adjustable suspension, saggy out the crate, 28 horsepower. I've got 44 horsepower here and fully adjustable suspension for the same price as a 300L, and I think that's the market that's going to be appealed to by this, certainly this Enduro. Yeah, compared to the CRF down here, this is just, I feel more in control. I feel I've got more in the bike to give it the lane, i.e. if I wanted to go faster I can do. And even from a novice point of view, you're going to just have more control in the bike because the suspension's working. It's harnessing the power of the bike and giving grace to the way it propels down the trail, where the CRF just blamonges its way up and down this kind of lane, which you get used to and I don't dislike, but for when you wanted to push on, you just want a bit more control. This throttle response, you know what, I've got no issue with that. Yes, it needs a bit more revs, but I'm in 6th gear now, 40 miles an hour. That's picking up nicely. Don't forget we've got a new engine, so it's not going to be as punchy as it will be in, say, 3,000 miles. But I kind of don't know what people want. Yeah, I don't have an issue with the way this has responded. Down to 5th. But I'd say I'm a moderate rider, you know. I have moments where I try and ride quick and I take on challenging terrain, but I'm not out to set records and I'm not out to race down tracks at record pace, because the aim of the game is to get home in one piece. So there'll always be different people who approach trail riding differently. I mean, the way that just is absorbing that little ridge there. I've always been a fan of the Apex suspension. I think it's very good on the old 390, and it seems quite plush here. I've not made any adjustments, I've just rode it as standard, at factory standard setting, which I'm not sure what it is, but it feels absolutely spot on. I don't think I'd want to change it. I've got control and suppleness, which are the two words I always like to be able to define the suspension with. Is it supple? Yep. Is it control? Yep. Perfect. It's definitely more supple than the CF motor, which is a little bit firm. The Himalayan carries itself very well, but it's a big girl. It's 200 kilos, and therefore it needs to carry itself very well. This is 35 kilos less than that, and 35 kilos is a lot of weight. I can tell a huge amount of difference just in the agility of the bike. I'm going to stop at the end of this lane, just give you a quick little download. Let's see how dirty she is already, bloody hell. Oh, that's the problem with new bikes, isn't it? You've got to get them dirty. I've got no issue with that. Let's see height 890. It's going to be too tall for some. A lot of my customers, I've got to say, I had a group down the other day, they're all 28 inch legs, and it's just going to, people that tall are going to struggle with this unless they're very confident riders. Somebody said, why do they need to be so tall? Well, I guess it's one of those, isn't it? They're trying to build a bike that can do trail work, and therefore does it need to be tall? I don't know. Maybe they could package it differently so the seat's out there. The Himalayan did a great job of bringing that seat height down to about 820 by laying the shock down, putting the airbox here, but that made it top heavy. So whichever way you go, you're going to compromise. People are asking about this low exhaust here. Is that an issue? I really don't think so. I think, well, I'll take it to TAR steps this week sometime, which should go over the exhaust, but as long as the engine's running, it shouldn't be an issue. And if you lay it down in the water, fall off, what's the difference between it being there and there? I can't see any. The big difference for me is that if I put luggage here, I'm not going to set it on fire with the exhaust, which is I've done time and time again. I got to say, like, you know, what do you want me to say? Does it feel like a nice, exciting bike to ride? Does it ride as excitingly as it looks? That first 2 miles, yes, it's crisp on the throttle. Yes, it's got that Euro 5 plus a slight blancmangy, stretchy, artificial sense to it. You know, we'll never get the feel that we had in the cable-operated Euro 4 or early Euro 5 bikes. But it's not as bad. I don't think it's as bad as people are saying at all. No, I'm going to do some technical stuff in a short while. We'll see how it goes there. But yeah, like it. Next lane. I just saw it again there pulling away. I wasn't recording, but I had to stop for a van and he flashed me through. I saw it again. I think you've just got to be a bit more positive on the throttle when you let the clutch out. I think that's it. And when you get caught in those moments, say when you have to turn it around because of a tractor or somebody flashes you out and you go, oh, okay, go. I think it's those times it just catches you out. Yeah, it's a real shame about that Beta. That Beta was lighter than this by a good 10 kilos. It was down on power, but it felt a strong engine. It felt agile. It felt a suitable bike for someone who wasn't overly skilled off-road. And I've got the feeling that this is for the more keen rider or the better rider, whereas that Beta, with a slightly lower seat as well, I think it was 850mm, was the bike that would have worked really well for the more novice rider. I would have another one when they fix that Euro 5 plus emissions, the throttle, make it better. Even if they made it as good as this, that would do. But I think this is still going to catch a lot of people out when putting them on my fleet. The rideability of a bike is brought very sharply into focus when you give it to a group of people to ride who haven't ridden it before, or maybe haven't ridden that type of bike. How do they find it? Do they stall it? That tended to be what happened with the 310 GS. People would stall it straight off the bat, stall it again. Things like the Himalayan 450, that's a very easy bike to ride. Anybody seems to be able to ride that without any issue. I think the rideability of this bike will be shown as slightly troublesome with those first people I put on it. Oh, what have I picked up? I've got a chush like a train. It feels like I've got a train. What is it? Actually, I broke it already. What is it? Feels like something stuck in a wheel. Oh God. Oh, don't say I broke it already. I think it's that. Back wheel. Maybe it's a bit of mud just stuck in it. Try a few more miles. So she goes. Whoop. It is a little bit tall. I stopped. Huh. Fixed it just by looking at it. That's the kind of mechanic I am. That's the kind of problems I like to deal with. Yeah, probably just a bit of some build up in the brakes, I would say. That front brake disc did seem to have a rub on it. Yeah, there's been a few little niggles with this bike. As I say, I was supposed to pick it up last week, and then I got a call on the day I was due to set off, or just before I was due to set off, saying there'd been a stop cell put on the bike by KTM, and essentially it seemed like some bikes had gone out with a spacer on the front wheel that was a little bit too small, too big a gap, so left too big a gap, and that meant that the forks, when they were tightening them up, were squeezing together a little bit. And some bikes had already gone out. It looks like, I mean, there's a few people who've had front wheel bearings go quite prematurely. Possibly that, wouldn't it? I mean, it would make sense that if the wrong spacers, then it might put excessive wear on the bearings, so they've been failing at 1,000 miles. Some bikes were affected, some wasn't, which was quite, I find it quite peculiar. That there'd be variance in the same component from bike to bike. I don't know whether there's different batches. And one was machined badly and they all went into the same bag and random ones were picked out, who knows. But in fairness to KTM, they do seem to be on the ball, picking up stuff and getting the bikes out there. They feel a little bit beleaguered as a brand, that's the sense I get. They're a bit in the doldrums. Obviously they've overshot with the business dealings the last few years, got themselves in trouble, got bailed out by the Chinese and the Indians, and yeah, licking their wounds a little bit. They need their new bikes to function, to not fail. If these bikes fail on a regular basis, then yeah, it don't bode well, does it really? So there's a lot of pressure on them. We're all looking at them to be reliable. There's no point building bikes that are ready to race. It flashes up there, ready to race, if they break down mid-race. It's still a strong statement for KTM. I think it's aged badly, that ready to race slogan. It's a travel bike. It's a dual sport bike actually, as it lists it on the website. And dual sport's not about racing. We're not ready to race. We're not racing anyway. It's about, as I say, coming back in one piece and having a good ride. And yeah, I think it'd be nice if they just dropped that. I like the Ryu's slogan. It's for everyday adventure. I like that. It's quite humbling, isn't it? It means that you can go out, you ain't got anything to prove. Whereas on this, well, I'm racing. I'm on a ready to race bike. But we'll ignore it for now. So yeah, they're the dials when you're in off-road mode. If I switch this along, why can't it just be one button between off-road? Why do I have to go into this? Why do I have to do this when I'm riding along? Street mode, close throttle. I mean, they still haven't got it quite right. On the CF Moto, you can do it on a button. Just hold a button down for 2 seconds, it swaps between traction control on and off and ABS on and off. This, you've got to go into a sub-menu. I mean, they've still got it wrong. It's better than it was, but it's still far too clunky than it needs to be. So now I'm in street mode, traction control on, ABS on. I've got gear indicator, I've got my rev counter, time, that sort of thing. I've got other, I can go to fuel gauge. Don't know what that, I don't know if that's minutes to reserve. I've got to read my instructions a little bit more. So I've got information. I've got ABS here. I've got a big button actually here for ABS, but I think that is just ABS mode. Yeah, that doesn't do anything while I'm riding. I think it's one of them buttons you got to stop and press while you stop and put into neutral and do. But we can change rider modes while we're riding. We're just likely to crash and burn while we're doing so. Instant notice then, when you put it in off-road mode, it sharpens the throttle up. And that might be something for people who are saying it's a doughy throttle. Well, it was certainly doughier on road than it is on off-road. And I've heard somebody else say that. The problem then is, well, I've got no ABS now, only on the rear, only on the front, and my traction control's off. So maybe you want a sharper throttle and traction control on it. I'm not sure if you can work your way around it. As I say, first ride, so there's still a lot to learn. Little track here, again, nothing too technical. Kicking around a little bit. I mean, what we're now fourth. I mean, just riding tall geared. To be honest, on these kind of tracks, my eyes take. Oh yeah, there's not a lot of grip front end purchase on these tyres on this surface mush. But again, we're running road pressures, so I'm not going to be too hard on the tyre. Yeah, it just takes my eyes a little while to adjust. I don't know, new glasses or something. Nicely balanced. It seems that the throttle and the fueling is good once you're away. Pulling away can sometimes trip you up, but once you're actually up and rolling, it's nice. I can't feel any surge or lag in that throttle. No, it's pretty crisp, and we'll find out in a second. I've got a little tricky section up here ahead. We'll see how we get up that. I probably like a little bit more suppleness to this suspension on this sort of rocky section. It's just jostling around a bit. Maybe it's a new bike, it'll soften up a bit, and then obviously make some adjustments to suspension. I sometimes think, suspension adjustment is good, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's easy to get it wrong. The Himalayan 450 is good for the fact it's just great out of the crate. You don't have to do anything to it, it just works. Obviously there's outliers. If you're really heavy or really light, it's not going to be as optimised, but I find pretty much everyone comes back and say, wow, that Himalayan suspension is perfect, and there's no adjustment in it, it just works. So it is doable to make a good universal suspension setup for most people without the need for adjustment. Whereas sometimes with all these things to turn, you can make it worse and then not realise how you've made it worse or how to make it better. Dark Artist suspension. Right, this is not my wisest idea. I never have great ideas. This climb is a little bit naughty. See there, just then. Just stalled out, just stopped. I mean, you could say it was rider error, but you've got to get the clutch in a bit early and clutch slip it a little bit more. You wouldn't expect it to stall then, but it did. So, is it as an easy bike to ride? Say that compared to that CRF, would the CRF stall there? No, I mean, that's a nice, soft, rideable engine that's not got the power, but has probably got the safety net about it. It catches you more than this does. As I say, early days on the engine, but that would be the argument for something like a CRF or the Himalayan 450i, in that it's a little bit more hand-holding. It won't stall like this one does. Let's see if we get up here. So we've got ABS, SOE, traction control. You see that? Not ideal. I went to pull away then, it just... Yeah. This is, as I say, this is better than the Beta because it once it's running, it runs clean off the throttle. But at this slow speed, faffing around, it's a little bit unrefined. I will say that. Oh dear. Yeah, I've got no traction at the rear. This is not going to end very well, I don't think. But I tell you what, look at that. I bagged out the throttle, I've said it's not very nice and it stalls and we can pick it apart. Well, I just went up there, which is the camera's not going to make that out to be what it is in real life, but that's an exposed stone that's wet and very slippy on a not less than ideal tyre. And I just went up there on a part, neutral, went up there on a part throttling first, just covering the clutch, not really doing much with it, and it fueled perfectly. So look, we've got a little bit of fine tuning maybe in our riding to do. But a bit like that CF Moto is actually, that's a sharp throttle, people find that a bit sharp, which it is. But then when you're on throttle on a climb, it's perfect. And sometimes these bikes, you just need to get them away. Once they're in, once that cable's in, that power's starting to come in, they're brilliant. But yeah, the way they're being tuned for emissions just makes them, there's a little bit of roughness. And in the CF Moto's case, there's like a sharp uptake, when you roll on and off the throttle. It doesn't stall like this though. This is a different type of throttle issue to that CF Moto. This stalls and the CF Moto doesn't. But then at the same time, you don't get that snatchiness on and off that you get on that CF Moto. So yeah, it's interesting how they all find different compromises to the same conundrum of making a bike run well on a very strict regime of emissions control. It's a real shame, isn't it? We're faffing around with Euro 5 emissions, so it uses an egg cup less of fuel in a year, so that it's Euro 5 plus emission compliant, and all the rest of the things that's going on in the world that causes emissions, even if you want to believe that emissions causes what they say it causes, that's up to you. But that's a microscopic amount of difference it's making, real terms, to anything versus the actual big impact it makes on the feel at the throttle, how the bike rides. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that bikes are suffering to save a breath of fresh air. I don't get it. I don't get it. Well, there's a lot about modern world we don't make sense, but that's another day another discussion for another day. I'm going to do a little snapper, and which is a bit of a climb we've got in this neck of the woods. It's not overly technical. There's a harder version of it, which I won't do that because that makes me sweat, and I think with these tyres at this pressure it would be a little bit too much hard work, and with this engine as tight as it is, the engine don't need to suffer either. But I think little snapper, we should be alright on it, because once you get the bike going, it's not a case of labouring the engine. I'm just thinking consciously about seat comfort. It's actually alright, at the minute. I know we're only early days in, but I don't feel like I'm going to suffer in the next hour or so. Okay, I'm going to do a little snapper. I mean, there it has got strength when the revs pick up. You can tell it's going to be a good road bike. I'm going to come down a second. Oh dear. first. Just pumping that clutch because it was starting to bog a little bit. This has got a little bit more testing than I remember it. What I was trying to do then was labour the engine. It's funny, I don't know if it's traction control in the off-road setting which still gives you some sort of traction control, but there was a little bit of dip in power, you know, when you actually kind of wanted a bit of power, it was just sort of feathering it off. That could be the throttle, or it could just be that traction control that needs to be deactivated rather than in off-road mode. That's something I've got to learn. Let's come up to second, let's ride the bike a bit more. Getting a lot of chatter. Through the suspension, but we're doing it. Now that was second with just a little bit of clutch slip. What I have got is a good standing position. Let's carry it through in second. For sale, one careful owner. Never been ridden off road. Okay, I'm getting a workout there. Oh. That's rough up there at the minute. Okay, so I'm making my bike suffer so yours don't have to. Fans on. It's had a workout. Shouldn't have ridden it like that. I do apologise to anybody who cares about mechanical sympathy. Now, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? I've got to say that. I think there needs to be a bit more suppleness in that suspension. Maybe I could dial that in, figure that one out. Obviously, to be honest, the tyres are fucking full road pressure, so they're going to be bouncing off rocks, no worries, no end there. That throttle, as I say, once you're driving, it's actually alright. There's nothing wrong with it once you're driving. I've had those stall outs, and it definitely just seems to be static to application. That is just a little bit mushy, and sometimes it just keeps to catch out and stall. I think that'll improve, and then look. Do you think that met running in procedure? I'm not probably sure it did, but look, that went how I expected it to, and I guess showed me. I'm trying to process this as I go. Okay, what did that mean going up there like that? And I've been up there on the Hemi 450, and I've been up there on the KTM 390 Adventure, the old one. That showed me that this has got an ability to do. Well, that's a relatively technical track. I'd say that if you were grading trails, that's a red, at least a red, top end of red. But it has got an ability to do track, quite steep stuff. And as I say, what I'm interested in is the fact that, or what I believe is the fact that it will be able to slog down to Italy with no issue. Maybe not the Enduro, but certainly the Adventure. How would the Adventure have been coming up that track? Well, it would have been much the same. You'd just have had potentially more weight from the extra fuel, and you'd have had the screen in front of you. So you can, make your mind up. If you're going to be doing more this kind of riding, then get the Enduro. If you're going to be doing more open road riding, get the Adventure. But I think for the way that they came up that hill, they would have been both much the same, much of a muchness. Got some rain in North Devon. So that's about it. I've got nothing else to tell you. I think that's covered all bases for now. First ride. I'm just going to pull away here. See, it's this road here. Okay, this is a nice flowing A road with some rain on it. And this is when those tyres, which are 50-50 or 60-40 road focused, they're going to work better than a knobbly. That are going to last longer than a knobbly. So therefore, you could get out to Stella Alpina on one set of these tyres and have enough grip for the gravel tracks out in the Stella and come back in, no worries on the road. And that's the middle ground that this bike treads, or I hope it continues to tread or proves itself to tread. That I can do those kind of tracks, that people can challenge themselves by doing trickier tracks than they normally could, and then at the same time get on the road and like what we're doing now, what we're doing 50 miles an hour, just taking it steady in the rain. They can go down here at quite a quick pace because it's a quick engine, without any vibrations, with nothing coming through the pegs. I can't feel anything coming through the pegs. I can't feel much coming through the bars, just a slight little bit, but not of anything of note. And then if I wanted to jump on that motorway to Plymouth and get that ferry to Santander to do the ACT. It's lighter than a Himalayan, it's taller than a Himalayan, it's less road refined than a CF Moto, it's more lighter and therefore a little bit more agile than the CF Moto off-road. It's got more pace than a CRF 300, it's not quite as refined as a CRF 300 off-road, I think, and for the novice rider I think they're going to have an easier time on the CRF for that throttle, for that fueling, for that refinement. That's it. Cheers.